Good morning. Today we'll talk about leishmaniasis. So what is it? It is a complex group of disorders. Leishmaniasis is caused by an unicellular eukaryotic obligatory intracellular protozoa of the genus Leishmania. It primarily infects the host reticular endothelial system, and we can classify this into three broad categories. One is visceral leishmaniasis, the second one is cutaneous, third one is mucosal. So we have three broad categories in under leishmaniasis. So what is the etiology? Etiology, there are about 20 species of the genus Leishmania in the order Kinetoplastida from the family Trypanosomatidae. So it is transmitted by sandflies, that is phlebotomy sandflies of the genus Phlebotomus in the old world, that is Asia, Africa, and Europe, and the genus Lutzomia in the new world, that is America. So the transmission may be here anthropomorphic or zoonotic. What do you mean by anthropomorphic? Anthropomorphic means the vector transmits the infection
நவுறா அப்படி பா
to the healthy humans. Zoonotic means that is the vector transmits the infection from an animal reservoir to the humans. So human to human transmission is also seen. It is seen in infected individuals having sharing needles with, especially in IV drug abusers, especially in the Mediterranean region. In utero transmission is also seen, but it occurs very. So what is the organism? How does the organism look like? Leishmania organisms occur in two forms. Pavan Sai, someone raised your hand. You have a doubt? Okay. So it occurs in two forms. One is extracellular flagellate promastigate form, which this occurs in the sandfly, and intracellular non-flagellate amastigate form, which occurs in the humans. So the life cycle goes like this. A sandfly, it takes a blood meal and it regurgitates the promastigates over to the skin of the human body. So in the human, these promastigates, they are picked up by the macrophages. In the macrophages, these promastigates, they transfer into amastigates and they multiply by binary fission. And once these amastigates, they divide and become full of okay, once these promastigotes, they transfer into amastigotes and they become, they divide by binary fission. And once the cell is full of these amastigotes, the cells, they burst open. And these amastigotes, they are picked up by the macrophages of other tissues, other various tissues, thereby infecting other tissues also. And in this process, again, a sandfly takes a blood meal. And now in the sandfly, in the gut of the sandfly, this sandfly, these amastigotes, they become promastigotes in the gut of the sandfly. Here again, they divide and they migrate to the proboscis of the sandfly. And the sandfly again, when it goes and bites a healthy individual, it again regurgitates promastigates. So the life cycle goes on like this. We also have zoonotic from the humans. Canines especially are affected in this life cycle. Right. So epidemiology. What is the epidemiology? It occurs in almost all the countries, most of them in the developing countries of tropical and temperate regions. About 98 countries are affected. More than 1.5 million cases occur every year, of which 0.7 to 1.5 million are cutaneous and 2 to 4 lakh are visceral. So more than 350 million people are at risk. Overall prevalence is about 1.2 million, 12 million population. So although the leishmania distribution is limited by the availability of sandfly vectors, human leishmaniasis is on the increase overall. Now coming to, we have to talk under three headings. One is visceral leishmaniasis, other one is cutaneous, the third one is mucocutaneous. So visceral leishmaniasis, it is also called as Kala Azar. Kala means black in Hindi. So Kala Azar, also called as black fever. It is caused by Leishmania donovani complex, which includes two organisms. One is Leishmania donovani, which gives a which is transmitted through anthropootic transmission. The other one is Leishmania infantum or Chagassi, which has a zoonotic transmission. So usually there are four countries which are the largest foci of visceral leishmaniasis. About 90% of the world's burden is from these four countries: India, neighboring Bangladesh, Sudan, Ethiopia, and Brazil. These are the largest foci for VL. Now, a small note on Mediterranean VL. I already told you Mediterranean region, there are IV drug abusers, and there is a transmission from human to human also in these cases. So usually the VL in Mediterranean region is due to Leishmania infantum. It has a large benign reservoir. Zoonotic transmission is more common in these regions, and it is seen primarily in infants before the advent of HIV infection. And in Mediterranean Europe, 70% of adult visceral leishmania cases, they are associated with HIV co-infection. Like how we have 70% co-infection of HIV and tuberculosis in India. In that country, Mediterranean Europe, in those countries, it is visceral leishmaniasis co-infected with HIV. IV drug abusers are usually at particular risk, and other immunosuppressed patients like organ transplant patients, they are also at risk. So what is the immunopathogenesis? Majority mount a successful immune response and control the infection, and these people never go into a symptomatic disease, and they shed the disease like with good immune response. So how do you check for immune response? There is a test called Montenegro skin test. So what happens is you inject killed promastigotes intradermally, and you you look for the reaction after 48 hours. So there is a delayed hypersensitivity reaction to these leishmanial antigens in good immune individuals. So the immune response in patients who develop visual leishmaniasis is very complex. Usually, like all other infections, here also there is increased production of multiple pro-inflammatory cytokines and chemokines like interleukin 12, tumor necrosis factor, etc. But one thing which is markedly elevated is interleukin 10. So interleukin 10 is markedly elevated in these patients, and there is enhanced interleukin 10 mRNA expression in lesional tissues. So we already discussed that these leishmania bodies, they affect the reticular endothelial system. So organs of the reticular endothelial system are predominantly affected, and thereby there is a marked enlargement of spleen, liver, and some areas have even lymph nodal enlargement. The tonsils and the intestinal submucosa are also heavily infiltrated with parasites. Bone marrow dysfunction, obviously it will lead to pancytopenia. So these, you remember this, if this is the pathogenesis, this is the cause for the clinical features also. So because of affection of all these reticular endothelial system, we'll have symptoms. So the clinical features, so this fever, typically the patient presents with an abrupt onset of moderate to severe fever, severe grade fever, high grade fever, and it also has rigors and chills. And this fever, it may continue for a long duration for over many weeks, and with decreasing intensity, and suddenly it may stop. After some time, the patient may become afebrile, but after a gap of some short period, again the patient may start having another bout of fever. So this fever again, it will continue for a few weeks. Again, the patient may become afebrile. So this is the type of fever which is seen in these leishmaniasis. And we have already discussed, because the parasite affects the spleen, there is marked splenomegaly, moderate hepatomegaly is also seen, and lymphadenopathy is also common, but in India it is not seen much. Lymphadenopathy is not common in India. So this is a figure showing marked splenomegaly in a patient. Patients usually lose weight and they feel very weak. The skin also becomes dark colored, mostly seen even in brown colored individuals. The hyperpigmentation is so marked that it can be even seen in brown skinned individuals. So as the disease progresses, there is hypoalbuminemia because the liver is affected, albumin production is decreased, the patient may present with fetal edema and ascites. Anemia also appears early, and this anemia may lead, it may become so severe that it may cause congestive heart failure. Because of thrombocytopenia, because bone marrow depression is there, there is thrombocytopenia. Because of thrombocytopenia, there will be bleeding manifestations, especially epistaxis, retinal hemorrhages, even GI bleed is seen. And because of decrease in the macrophages are destroyed, so there can be secondary infections such as measles, pneumonia, tuberculosis, dysentery, gastroenteritis. All these are very common. Even viral infections like herpes zoster and chickenpox are also seen. And untreated disease, it is very fatal in most of the patients, especially if the patient has HIV co-infection. How do you diagnose this disease? So the gold standard is demonstration of A mastigotes in the smears of the tissue. So what are the tissues affected? We already discussed: spleen, bone marrow, liver, lymph nodes, etc. So the sensitivity is the highest in splenic smears. If you take a smear from spleen, so more than 95% positivity is seen in splenic smear, followed by bone marrow aspiration and followed by lymph nodal aspiration. And culture obviously increases the sensitivity. So these are the LD bodies. So you can see extracellular bodies, and even in the cell, inside the cell, inside the macrophages also you see LD bodies. So both intracellular and extracellular LD bodies are seen. So here I just want to put a note. We had one patient with fever for a long duration. The patient was a worker, laborer. He had come from Bihar. He was staying in Hyderabad. So he had come. He was admitted for us for fever for the past 3 to 4 months. On and off, it was coming. It was there for 20 days, and he had a relapse again after 10 days. And then we had worked him up for everything. Everything came out to be negative. So there was a large spleen. Spleen was enlarged, and we thought in terms of any leukemias, chronic myeloid leukemia. We worked up even for that. That also came out to be negative. But on bone marrow aspiration, we had a picture of LD bodies in the bone marrow aspiration. And then hence we derived that it is Leishmania donovani because it is very rare in the south zone of India. We did not suspect it. But on bone marrow aspiration, we got that. And the clinching point here was he was from Bihar. So then we treated him with amphotericin B and he became healthy. So this is the typical picture where you see Leishmania donovani bodies, both intracellular and extracellular. However, getting a smear and testing it is difficult. Making a smear and doing you reading it under microscope is difficult when you are in a field. So in field, they have developed some rapid tests, immunochromatographic tests, with using one recombinant antigen called RK39 antigen. So this requires only one drop of blood, and you can read the test within 15 minutes. It's very fast and quite sensitive. So except in East Asia, the sensitivity is of approximately 98%, and the specificity is also good, which is 90% in immunocompetent patients. But in Sudan, this RDT, that is rapid the diagnostic test, it was based on some other antigen, that is RK28. It was more sensitive compared to RK39. And some specialized labs, so they also have PCR testing and quantitative real-time PCR also done. Quantitative detection is also done by real-time PCR. Especially in labs, this is not regularly routinely done in all the cases. Now, what is the differential diagnosis? For all fevers, I already described one case. So any fever, you have to think in terms of all infections, typhoid fever, tuberculosis, brucellosis, schistosomiasis, especially in Africa, histoplasmosis, anything. So all these fevers you have to work up for. And splenomegaly, because there is marked enlargement of spleen, a large spleen can be seen in very few cases. So what are the differential diagnoses here? Portal hypertension, again you have other things pertaining to portal hypertension. You can see variceal bleeds, and also that will go in favor of portal hypertension. And chronic myeloid leukemia, again you will have a massive splenomegaly even in chronic myeloid leukemia. But again, the other constitutional symptoms will also be present. Tropical splenomegaly syndrome, if the patient is hailing from somewhere endemic zone of malaria, you can have a tropical splenomegaly syndrome, wherein treating with anti-malarial treatment will treat the spleen. Schistosomiasis, especially in Africa. You have to think about all these other diagnoses other than leishmaniasis. So, but the clinching point will be if the patient is from an endemic zone, endemic area of visceral leishmaniasis, any fever with neutropenia or pancytopenia, along with hypergammaglobulinemia, it will strongly suggest visceral leishmaniasis. So, any fever with neutropenia or pancytopenia, if the patient is from endemic area, along with hypergammaglobulinemia, will strongly suggest visceral leishmaniasis. So now what is the treatment? Treatment of visceral leishmaniasis. Symptomatic treatment for all, like all cases, if the patient is having anemia, you have to give blood transfusion. If the patient is having some secondary infections, you have to treat those infections. Any other comorbid conditions, they should be managed promptly. But the specific treatment will be, we have few drugs. One is pentavalent antimonial compounds. So there are two compounds in this group. So one is sodium stibogluconate. We give a dose of 100 milligram. These are injectables. So 100 milligram of antimony per ml, and meglumine antimoniate. This has 85 milligrams of antimony per ml. So the daily dose of antimony will be 20 milligram per kg by IV injection or IM injection. So this therapy will be continued for 28 days to 30 days. So almost 1 month. Cure rates are usually 90% in Africa and America and most of the other countries of the world, but they're very less in India, especially in Bihar. It is only less than 50%, maybe because of resistance, development of resistance to these antimonial drugs. So what are the side effects of these drugs? So once you give antimonial drugs, the patient may have arthralgias, myalgias, and elevated levels of transaminoperases. So even ECG changes are seen. ST elevation, which is very insignificant, it is not very significant. But the one you have to be aware is prolonged QT prolongation. QTC prolongation will be more than 0.55, and this may lead to ventricular arrhythmias, and the patient may have sudden deaths. And this is one thing which we have to be careful. So ECG monitoring has to be done. And the chemical pancreatitis is also common, but it is usually self-limited, no problem, no need for any discontinuation of the treatment. And symptomatic treatment will be enough for chemical pancreatitis. But some cases there will be severe clinical pancreatitis, especially in immunosuppressed patients like organ transplant patients or any patients with HIV co-infection. The next drug we have is amphotericin B. This is the drug which is used as first line drug in Bihar because we have resistance to antimonial compounds. So only 50% cure rate with antimonial compounds. Hence, we go for amphotericin B in India. So this in other parts of the world it is used as second line drug, but in India we are using it as first line drug. So conventional amphotericin B deoxycholate, it is administered in doses of 0.75 to 1 milligram per kg on alternate days for a total of 15 infusions. So 15 infusions again will take 1 month. So 0.75 to 1 milligram per kg on alternate days for a total of 15 infusions. So again, the side effects of these infusions will be fever with chills will also occur because of these infusions. Nausea, vomiting is also common. Thrombophlebitis is also seen. With these toxicities, they can be minimized by administration of antihistamines like chlorpheniramine maleate, antipyretic drugs like acetaminophen. Before you give the infusion, you just give an injection of Avil and you can give an injection of paracetamol, that will suffice. But sometimes what happens is this amphotericin B can cause renal dysfunction and hypokalemia. So these need to be taken care of. And in rare instances, there can be hypersensitivity reactions, bone marrow suppression, myocarditis, and all these are very fatal to the patient. So you have to be aware of these adverse side effects. The other component we have is liposomal amphotericin B, which is more, which has less toxicities as compared to the conventional amphotericin B. So this is given on in a dose of 3 milligram per kg daily for 7 doses. That is for daily for 1 to 5 days we give, and 14th day we give, and 21st day we give. So the total dosage will be 21 milligram per kg, amounting to a 7-day dosage. So adverse effects usually are mild and they include infusion reactions, backache, and occasionally it can go into a reversible nephrotoxicity. So once you stop the drug and give the patient's treatment, the nephrotoxicity will come back to normal. The other drug we have is, other than antimonials, amphotericin B, we have paromomycin. Paromomycin is given intramuscular dose. It is given in a dose of 11 milligram of base per kg daily for 21 days. It gives a cure rate of 95%. The good cure rate is seen with paromomycin. It is relatively a safe drug, but sometimes the patient develops hepatotoxicity and reversible ototoxicity. And sometimes, in very rarely, the patient also can have nephrotoxicity and tetany. The other drug is miltefosine. Miltefosine, it has a very long half-life, about 150 to 200 hours is the half-life. But the cure rate is quite good with miltefosine. It is about 94%. So dosage is, if the patient is less than 25 kg weight, you give 50 milligrams once a day. If the patient is more than 25 kg weight, then you give 50 milligrams twice a day. And for children less than 2 to 11 years, the dose is 2.5 milligram per kg. All the dosages are for 28 days. So the miltefosine has to be given for 28 days. Less than 25 kg, 50 mg OD. More than 25 kg, 50 mg BD. And for children, it will be 2.5 milligram per kg for 28 days. So the adverse effects, again, they are mild to moderate vomiting, diarrhea, but usually these go away, they clear very spontaneously after a few days. Some few rare cases are seen which have severe allergic dermatitis, hepatotoxicity and nephrotoxicity. And this drug has to be given under directly observed treatment because it is expensive, and if the compliance is not good, the patient may develop resistance to this drug. So we, in order to minimize the risk of resistance induction and also to give it effectively, it is given in directly observed dosage. This drug is absolutely contraindicated during pregnancy because as a trial in rats, pregnant rats, there was teratogenicity seen in rats. So it is not advised to be given in pregnant ladies. So it is contraindicated in pregnancy. So there was also another view. Instead of giving single drugs, they have started giving multi-drug therapy. So multi-drug therapy, what are the advantages? So with multi-drug therapy, it will be, the patient will have better compliance and cost also will be lower because because the treatment course will be lessened and there will be decreased hospitalization. So the cost will be effective. And less toxicity will be there because lower drug doses is given and for a shorter duration. And development of resistance is also very less with multi-drug therapy. So in India, what is the multi-drug regimen? So one dose of liposomal amphotericin B in a dose of 5 milligram per kg, it is given followed by miltefosine for 7 days or paromomycin for 10 days. So two regimens, liposomal amphotericin B with miltefosine for 7 days or paromomycin for 7 days, for 10 days, or liposomal amphotericin B along with both miltefosine and paromomycin simultaneously for 10 days can also be given. So this gives a cure rate of more than 97%. So this has been approved and it is being used in India. So these are the three combinations. Either one can be adopted. In Africa, there is a combination of antimony. Antimony is not useful in India because of less cure rate. So, but in other countries, antimony is used. So in Africa, antimony along with paromomycin is given for 17 days, and it was more effective or as effective and safe as antimony given for 30 days. Antimony was initially given for 30 days, total of 30 days. But here with combination of paromomycin, the dose, the course has been decreased to 17 days. That was also equally effective. So what is the prognosis? How does the patient recover? Once you start treatment, the recovery is very quick. So within 1 week of start of treatment, there will be defervescence, that will the fever decreases, there will be regression of splenomegaly, the patient will start gaining weight, and obviously the hematological parameters also, they recover immediately within after 1 week. So with effective treatment, there will be absolutely no parasites in the tissue aspirates at the post-treatment evaluation. Once you evaluate the patient after the post-treatment, that is maximum is 30 days in antimonial cases. The other things we are giving for 28 days. So after 1 month, if you evaluate, the patient will not have any parasites in the tissues. And then the clinical improvement will be continued. If the clinical improvement is continued for 6 to 12 months, then you can declare the patient as cured. But a small percentage of these patients, they relapse. But even these people, they respond well to the treatment with amphotericin B or lipid formulations of amphotericin B. So they respond very well even if they have a relapse. We have one small note on immunocompromised patients. We have discussed that HIV co-infection, especially in Mediterranean region, they have 70% co-infection of HIV with visceral leishmaniasis. So usually, how does this visceral leishmaniasis behave? So it behaves as an opportunistic infection, like any other opportunistic infection, like toxoplasma or cryptococcosis or like any other infection. This also behaves like an opportunistic infection in HIV-1 infected patients. HIV infection also can increase the risk of developing visceral leishmaniasis by several folds in the endemic region. So they are both, what do you say? They both increase equally in any patient. So co-infected patients usually they show classical signs of visceral leishmaniasis, but they may present with atypical features like infiltration of the skin, oral mucosa, gastrointestinal tract, lungs, and other organs. So they can present in other organs other than the reticuloendothelial organs. And usually, if you do a serodiagnostic test, it comes out to be negative. And parasites can be recovered from unusual sites such as bronchoalveolar lavage fluid or any Buffy port. Liposomal amphotericin B is the drug of choice for both primary cases and relapses. So any treatment relapses also are treated by liposomal and amphotericin B. So we give for 10 days, 10 doses of amphotericin B is given, liposomal amphotericin B. A total dose of 40 milligram per kg is given. So it is administered as 4 milligram per kg on days 1 to 5, daily for 5 days. Then we give one dose on 10th day, 17th day, 24th day, 31st day, and 38th day. So 10 doses, this is considered optimal, and most patients they again have experience a relapse within 1 year. Even this relapse can be treated similarly with liposomal amphotericin B. So we have one more entity in visceral leishmaniasis, which is called as post-Kala-Azar dermal leishmaniasis. So about 2 to 50% of patients, that is half of the patients, they develop skin lesions, either concurrent with the visceral leishmaniasis or after the cure of the visceral leishmaniasis. So usually these, the most common will be hypopigmented macules, papules, nodules, or there can be a diffuse infiltration of the skin and oral mucosa. The parasites usually are very scanty. You cannot take the parasites from these macules, but they may be seen and cultured mostly from the nodal lesions. Nodular lesions, you can culture the parasites. These cellular infiltrates, they're very heavy in nodules as compared to the macules. Lymphocytes are the dominant cells, followed by histiocytes and plasma cells. So this is the picture where you see small nodules over the face. So the treatment, it requires longer duration of treatment. So antimony in a dose of 15 to 20 milligram per kg intramuscularly is given for at least 60 to 120 days. That is, it has to be given for at least 4 months. Amphotericin B is also effective against PKDA. Now coming to the next entity, which is called as cutaneous leishmaniasis. It is also called as oriental sore of the old world. New world, again we call it as diffuse cutaneous leishmaniasis, and another entity is mucocutaneous leishmaniasis. So what is the oriental sore caused by? It is caused by 3 species, namely Leishmania tropica, Leishmania major, and Leishmania ethiopica. So cutaneous leishmaniasis, also oriental sore. How does the lesion start? The lesion starts as a nodule and at the site of the inoculation. Once it initially starts as a nodule, then again there is a crust formation. This crust falls off in the center and there is ulcer formation. So you can see an ulcer and ulcer in the middle. So this ulcer heals and usually you can have a pigmented scar over that area. Sometimes satellite lesions, that is lesions around this ulcer, are also common. Around the edge are also very common in this case. So another figure where you can see a crust formation and ulceration in the middle. So these are the LD bodies on this aspirate of the ulcer, this nodularity. The aspirate was done. You can see LD bodies in the with GM-set strain. So differential diagnosis for these ulcers. So if there is a typical history, that is a bite followed by ulceration in a resident of endemic area or a patient who has traveled to the endemic area, this strongly suggests cutaneous leishmaniasis. But if it is not so, then you can have a differential diagnosis of cutaneous tuberculosis, fungal infections, leprosy, sarcoidosis, and obviously malignant ulcers, because these ulcers are not going to heal for a long duration. So you can also suspect malignant ulcers. Likewise, you will have to investigate for these diseases. How do you diagnose? Again, demonstration of A mastigates from the material obtained from the lesion is the gold standard. And microscopic examination of slit skin smears, aspirates, and biopsies of the lesion also is used for detection of parasites. Culture again may yield leishmania. PCR is also very sensitive, but it is not done routinely. How do you treat? Usually it is a self-limiting local injection of antimony at a dose of 1 to 3 ml at 1 or 2-day intervals is enough, or a 10% solution of berberine sulfate or 5% solution of mepactrin or emetin can be infused. Topical ointments can be used, and the physical treatment like curettage, freezing, local heat, they can also be applied. Where do they need systemic treatment? Systemic treatment, again, it is required for lesions over the face. If the lesions are over the hands, joints, or if there are lots of lesions, that is multiple lesions are there, the ulcers are very large, or there is lymphatic spread. So such cases will require systemic treatment. What is the systemic treatment? Systemic treatment will be, again, antimony is the first line drug. We give 20 milligram per kg for 20 days. For visceral leishmaniasis, same dose, but we used to give it for 28 days, 28 to 30 days. Here we give it only for 20 days. So cutaneous leishmaniasis is caused by Leishmania viana or vianensis. This again is more amenable with pentamidine isothianate, isoethionate. It is the drug of choice. So 2 injections of 4 milligram of salt per kg given 2 days apart. So 2 injections of pentamidine is given 2 days apart. And the other one, which is caused by Ethiopica, it responds to paramomycin. 16 milligram per kg daily is given for L. Ethiopica. Relapses, usually they respond to a second course of the same drug. Leishmania major, again, this it is more amenable with oral fluconazole. Oral fluconazole at a dose of 200 milligram per day for 6 weeks. It is the treatment for L major. Even miltefosine is useful in these cases in a dose of 2.5 milligram per kg, which has to be given for 28 days. And the other one, which is Panamensis or Mexicana, they are cured with ketoconazole 600 milligram per day for 28 days, and it is about 76 to 90% effective. So ketoconazole is the drug of choice for Mexicana or Panamensis. So there are different names, different species which are caused by different species, the diseases, cutaneous diseases. So they are manifested as similarly, like Schindler's ulcers, which is caused by Mexicana, Uta, it is caused by Peruviana, Payan boys or bush jaws, they are caused by Guianensis, Panama or Ulcera di Vejuso, it is caused by Panamensis. So these are the different names given for different cutaneous leishmaniasis caused by different species. Now coming to the next entity, which is called as diffuse cutaneous leishmaniasis. This is caused by L. mexicana complex, but usually these lesions, they do not heal spontaneously. They need treatment. Even with treatment, it is very resistant. Even these Mexicana is quite resistant to treatment also. The last entity we call mucocutaneous leishmaniasis. So this has a propensity to metastasize, and it is called as espondia. So usually the lesions start in and around the nose and mouth, and later the patients will start having nasal stuffiness and bleeding, followed by destruction of the nasal cartilage and perforation of the nasal septum, and again there will be collapse of the nasal bridge. And this later can involve the pharynx and larynx. The patient may have difficulty in swallowing and phonation. So the causative organisms for mucocutaneous leishmaniasis are resiliensis and panamensis. So this is the nasal bridges ulcerated. Here you can see maybe it's the initial stage. Nasal stuffiness can be seen. Once if it is left untreated, it will cause even the infection can spread to pharynx and larynx, causing difficulty in swallowing and speaking. So how do you treat? Antimony is given in a dose of 20 milligram per kg for 1 month, or amphotericin B can be given in a dose of 25 to 45 milligram per kg, or liposomal amphotericin B can be given in a dose of 2 to 3 milligram per kg for 20 days. These are enough for mucocutaneous leishmaniasis. Or we also have one more drug which is miltefosine, 2.5 milligram per kg. It can be given for 1 month. Especially in Bolivia, it has seen to give a cure rate of 71%. So we have seen all three types of categories of leishmaniasis: visceral leishmaniasis, cutaneous, and mucocutaneous leishmaniasis. So how do you prevent about this? So we know this disease is caused by sandfly, and we have good treatment for this. So what do? No vaccine is available, so we cannot take any vaccine. So what do? We have to find the cases, we have to treat the cases, and obviously we have to give insect impregnated bed nets can be used, even curtains impregnated with insecticides can be used, and residual insecticide spraying. Sorry, that is not insect impregnated, it is insecticide impregnated bed nets and curtains. And residual insecticide spraying can be done to eliminate the sand flies, and we can prevent the spread of the disease. Thank you.